Hey there, and welcome. I'm Anna Hartman, and this is Unreal Results, a podcast where I help you get better outcomes and gain the confidence that you can help anyone, even the most complex cases. Join me as I teach about the influence of the visceral organs and the nervous system on movement, pain, and injuries, all while shifting the paradigm of what whole body assessment and treatment really looks like. I'm glad you're here. Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Unreal Results podcast. So this weekend, I think it's going to be February, and this is the first podcast episode I've sat down and recorded since the beginning of the year. Wow. Didn't see that coming. Didn't see that coming. I should know better. January always hits the ground running. And this January was no different. You know, traditionally, my busy season is football season. And so, whereas most people are like, oh, it's a new year, new me, new everything vibe that January brings, I'm like, it's not a new year until football season's over. And I don't know if football season's going to be until the end of like December, beginning of January, or the middle of February, because it all depends on if any of my athletes are in the playoffs or not, and if they go to the Super Bowl. So that's a little bit of what always puts a weird energy on my January, because it's like I can't fully commit to stuff on the schedule. I can't commit to I just can't commit to a full schedule until I know that, because that becomes my priority. My athletes are always my priority. And so, straight to the point, Anna, get to the point. One of my NFL athletes is in the Super Bowl, and is so surreal, really so surreal. And I'm just so proud of him and so excited for him. And he invited me up for the NFC Championship game. And so that was just so cool to be there. And I got unexpectedly emotional. And I guess I should have thought that I would be emotional. But yeah, I really wasn't expecting it. I expected to be super stoked for him and super excited if they won, and I expected to be real bummed if they didn't. But what I wasn't expecting is tears. And as soon as they won, it was sweet relief tears, and just proud tears. And I think what I mean by sweet relief is you don't realize sometimes how much energy, emotional energy, physical energy, cognitive energy goes into preparing and executing actions in the hope that it ends in that sort of situation, right? In the hope that you make the goal, right? With athletics, the goal is always to go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl for football players, to go to the championship and win the championship for basketball players, to go to the World Series, win the World Series for the baseball players, right? There's always this goal at the end of the season, whatever it may be. With track and field, it was not only to win your races, but to ultimately make a national team and go to world champs or go to the Olympics and win. And it's just the emotionalness of it, either whether you end up achieving those goals or not. I mean, most of the time it's not going to be not, right? Most of the time, those are the goals you set out for, and they don't happen. And that's just life. Like, that's life. That's not just sports. That's life, right? And the emotionalness is just like a final accumulation of realizing how much like relentless energy was spent in the pursuit of those goals. And I think too, like ultimately like being proud of yourself. It's interesting, it's interesting to me because I know one of the reasons I love working with elite athletes is I like thrive under high stress, high pressure environments. And when you're working with athletes like that, that is the epitome of like high pressure, high stress environments. And so I also know that one of the things I love about everybody I work with is the relationships I create, and like the fact that if someone has a goal and I am like part of their team, their goal becomes my goal, and I will do everything in my power to like make sure that I am carrying my weight. And so even though it's like, yeah, ultimately they're going to be the person who wins the Super Bowl, not me, you still feel like you're a part of it, right? When you're not with the team, you're not going to get a Super Bowl ring. You're not going to get a bonus. You're not, necessarily going to get recognized outside of like your own little community, your own family and stuff like that. And it's like, that's not even, and none of those things is even what it's about. It's just being a driven person who likes to take action and likes to be the best and like loves that high pressure environment, and like being on somebody's team, like that's like rewarding. We're rewarding enough in itself. And so so like I said, I shouldn't be surprised that I was emotional. But yeah, when they won the game, I teared up. I cried a little bit. And it was just like, like, it's just a good reflection point and a moment that you're like, like, so cool to put up for all those effort over the years and like finally reach the goal. Because like I said, most of the time you're not reaching those goals at all. And anyways, obviously there's more work to be done, right? There's one more game to be won. There's more treatment to be delivered in the next 2 weeks to make sure my athlete is going into the game feeling physically and mentally the best, and doing whatever I can to support him and support his family and make sure that they're ready to go. So super excited. But it does feel like finally it's like the first time since the end of December that I like actually know my schedule for the next few weeks, kind of. At least there is like an end point now. So on top of all that, I was not expecting the first 2 months of the year to be so busy with my in-person clients here in San Diego, which the majority of them are all Navy SEAL candidates, right? BUDS students, BUDS participants. And they just came off of their Christmas break, and like everything's like getting back. And so everybody was like high urgency, high needs. And I actually ended up like having to cancel some other like one-off regular clients just because I barely had the capacity for the Navy guys and my athletes and then myself. And I was just like, I clearly have too many people. My goal has never been to like have a ton of clients while in San Diego. Like usually when I'm in San Diego, I'm in between travel trips. I'm taking care of myself. I'm doing stuff for Movement Rev, like education business. And so the hard part is like I love treating people. I love treating elite people. So it's like hard for me to say no to these BUDS guys, these Navy SEAL candidates, because they are very similar to those elite athletes. And so, and then I've got other athletes reaching out to me now that it's like the off season for them, even though it's not the off season for me. And so it's just a lot to navigate. And then too, like the first week of the year, I was also trying to like take care of like some of my own goals that I wanted. Like I'm in Matt McInnes Watson's plyos intensive course, and so I've been trying to like carve out the time to, one, attend the sessions, and two, like do the plyo workouts in my own body. And then I like had this itch to start running again, so I was like trying to do a return to running program and take care of my body and make that a priority too. And so it's just like, yeah, tough. Been tough. I counted up the other day, I counted up how many patient sessions I've had in the last couple of weeks, and it was like 57 patient sessions, which is wild, like absolutely wild. So 57 patient sessions, weekly trips to Seattle for my NFL athlete, and then I also participated in my business masterminds, like in-person mastermind, which is like a 2.5 day thing. Luckily, they hosted it in San Diego this year, so at least didn't have to travel for that, which was really nice. But yeah, it's just a lot. Excuse my yawns. So this week I was actually supposed to go on my annual vacation to Hawaii for with the Gone Whale Watching crew. Which is the whale watching boat here in San Diego that I am like a crew member on. Every year we go to Hawaii for like 1 or 2 weeks for humpback breeding season and charter a boat with Maui Ocean Adventures. And it is like one of the coolest things. And I'm so sad / have so much FOMO for missing this week. But I just was like, with needing to be available to help my athlete prepare for the Super Bowl and just like also like be ready to like take the time for that, like whenever I need to, if I go back up to Seattle or just meet them in San Francisco for the Super Bowl next week, it's like I need, there was a lot of stuff that I needed to get done, and I also didn't want to be away from a few of the Navy guys for that long of a period of time, because one of them's going through first phase right now, and then another one of them is like at the end of a rehab I've been doing with him, and it's just bad timing for me to leave to go to Hawaii, which is sad a little bit, but also like I made that decision because even though it's like picking work over me, it's like that's what I actually want. Like that's my choice. Is what I love. I know that I would just hate not being here for all of those guys. So, and with that said, like the whales are in Hawaii until like end of March. So I'm just gonna have to go on my own. So I'll still get to see the whales. I just won't get to do it with the Gone Whale Watching crew and charter, which is a bummer, but also like they understand. They know that it's a tough time of year for me with always having to sort of like wait to make a move till I figure out the Super Bowl stuff anyway. So anyways, so that's where I'm at this week. But I'm also like very dialing down on the patient appointments, because I'm like, this is just not sustainable. And I'm obviously neglecting a lot of movement rev education stuff, which is reflected in the fact that I haven't had a podcast for the last 4 weeks. So we're back. So long intro, but also like a valid one. What else is going on? Oh, the other thing too, and this might even be part of what I was like, part of the emotionalness of the game on Sunday was, Saturday before the game was was it Saturday, Friday, Saturday, whatever day that was leading up into the game, when another American citizen was, well, it doesn't even matter if it was a citizen or not, another person in America was murdered by the ICE in Minnesota, and I was just very emotional about that. I'm still very emotional about that. clearly. It breaks my heart to see what's happening in our country right now, and to I think not only see what's happening, but like to like see our government just blatantly lie to us. Yeah. So very emotional about that, just as anybody would, watching people, multiple people now have their lives taken from them for seemingly no reason, no good reason at all, is just unbelievable. Yeah, so it's just also too, it's like, yeah, I haven't wanted to really work, and when I don't want to work, it's like I just don't have the energy to be creative or feel like the inspiration to be creative, because it's like, wow, how do you just sit down and like create content about like assessing and treating people when you're watching that happen? And it just is like, man, it sucks. But and that's also too, I think, a little bit of like, I tend to, when I want to disengage from things, I tend to just like, see a bunch of people in person, because I still feel like, well, it brings me joy. It makes me feel like I'm doing something. And it's easy work. Like, it checks the box if I'm working. But it's way easier to treat people than it is to like hold space and be present and like be an educator, especially on social media, podcasts, when fucking shit like this is going down. So yeah, heaviness. Anyways, like, how do you transition into like, hey, here's the podcast episode today? Like, we're living in a weird reality, and I'm also like not naive enough to believe that this is a new thing. It's just blatantly more in our face. And like I said, a big part is like, not that it's happening, but that we're being lied to about it. And that is just tough. So anyways, here we are. I'm showing up anyhow, and want to get back into the regular podcast episodes. And in the meantime, if you're on my email list, hopefully you're on my email list. If you're not, head to the link in the show notes and to the website and sign up to be on the email list. But if you're on my email list, you've been getting regular emails from me still, minus last week. And knowing that my podcast editor, Joe, who's also my YouTube editor, shout out Doc Joe O, he has been churning out great YouTube videos over the last few weeks when I haven't been recording the podcast. So there is not a lack of information being shared by me. So super grateful for that. And I'm happy to be spending a little bit more time on the YouTube channel. We actually just met last week and brainstormed on like how we could continue to sort of grow that and put a little bit more effort into it, to put some practical videos out there to help clinicians. And so yeah, I look forward to that this year in 2026. And and before we know it, we'll be ready, close to the online LTAP Level 1 course. That's coming up here in April. So if you're not on the wait list for that, make sure you get on the wait list. You'll get first dibs into that course. And it's going to be awesome. Okay, so we'll just jump in 20 minutes into the podcast. We'll jump into the topic for today. I'm not sure how long this topic will be, but somebody recently asked me, I think one of the Navy guys asked me, is there common treatments? Are there common treatments that I'm sort of doing on everyone? And part of his question was like, because they're all training the same way, they're all like complaining of the same things. Like the majority of them, when they come and see, it's shin splints, knee pain, hip pain, a little bit sometimes neck pain, but for the most part, shin splints and knee pain are probably the 80% of what I see with them. And it kind of got me thinking, and I was like, actually, yeah, like everybody, even my athletes, even like, you know, a couple colleagues that I see here and there, like where I end up treating, there's very similar spots in the body that I end up treating. And so I do kind of have like, you know, for lack of a better way to say it, like go-to treatments that I do over and over again because they work and they are high payoff spots, high payoff treatment, easy, and like get the job done. And so I wanted to share those on this podcast episode. And then, you know, what it really boils down to too, and this is what I can't like stress enough is, well, first of all, if you do these treatments just blindly because they're high payoff spots and easy to do, like you're probably going to feel things change in your body, right? You're probably, if you're doing this on your patients, you're probably going to see things change in your patients, right? You might see a change in core control. You might see a change in breathing mechanics. You may see a change in overall strength or mobility, you know, changes in shoulder range of motion, changes in hip and ankle range of motion, all things that we really want. And we know like support injuries and pains like a lot of the normal ones. Now, you know, the power in them is when to do them, this correct sequence to which to do them, right? And this happens a lot. Sometimes my athletes will be like, hey, why do you do treatment in similar spots with similar tools as like the athletic trainers or the physical therapists or whoever with my team or that I see in other areas, but like when you do it, I feel so much better. Like, what's the difference? And the difference always comes down to the sequencing, right? And that comes down to having an assessment like the locator test assessment protocol, the LTAP, because it's, I give the example of like everybody. The only way to know what your body needs, the sequence of those treatments your body needs, is like the only person that knows is your body. And so you have to have an assessment that like asks the body where to start and asks the body where to go next. That sequence that is then like created is your unique sequence that you need on that day. That unique sequence might not be the same as you need a month from now, but it is unique nonetheless, and your results are going to be better when you follow that. And I'm like, it's like having the it's like having the combination or the numbers to a combination lock. I can give you the 3 or 5 numbers of the combination lock, right? Like I can tell you the numbers for this combination lock are 32, 27, 4, and 12. And if I don't tell you the sequence, you could take literally forever to actually unlock the lock. Like you have the tools, like you have all of the answers, but not the right sequence. And there's so many possibilities for different sequences that it's like, you know, you're there for a while figuring it out. So I'm going to offer these areas of common treatments because I do, no matter the injury, a lot of the times, no matter the pain, a lot of the times I come back to these spots over and over again on literally everyone. But the power of them being effective lies in, are you in the right spot? And I know I've talked about this on a ton of podcast episodes. So if there is the one I can think of off the top of my head that I'll have Joe link in the show notes is like talking about the need for precision and specificity in your assessment versus treatment. Like a general treatment is more effective when you're more precise and specific with your assessment. And so I'll have Joe link that in the show notes. And if there's any other related episodes that I talk about this same concept, I'll make sure those are linked in the show notes too. So the top spots, I wrote them down on my phone the other day. Number one, oftentimes, is actually in the lower leg. It's the anterior compartment of the lower leg, specifically often the like mid shaft and below. And I think this is most associated with the extensor retinaculum. That's a hard word to say. The extensor retinaculum of the lower leg. So the bands of like thicker connective tissue around that lower leg. For some reason, I am drawn to that area on a lot of people, whether they have shin splints, knee pain, hip pain, sometimes like completely unrelated things, like up in their, low back, mid back, neck, upper extremity. Like I've been directed to this area on so many people for so many different things. And it also tends to be an area that is like, very icky feeling. And also an area that is like highly neglected in the rest of like the treatment world. So my favorite tool to use in this area is cupping and or self-massage with a ball, regular massage. Gui Sha type tool-assisted massage in this area works too. All of the above. Stretching, range of motion, specifically in plantar flexion. So this area tends to really affect like the mobility in both plantar flexion and dorsiflexion. So I love to stretch into plantar flexion with like a seiza sit, which is seiza is Japanese for like traditional sitting. So it's the full kneel with plantar flexion, basically. Any sort of variation to that. You can also do like a quadruped rocking version of that, basically going into knee flexion and plantar flexion at the same time. You can add a massage ball with it. You can cross your other leg over the ankle to maintain a real neutral foot, because the tendency often when this area is really tight is as we rock back into more knee flexion and plantar flexion, our ankle starts to sickle or invert. And so keeping it more neutral, everted will maximize the stretch and length across that more anterior medial area, especially where the tibialis anterior comes and attaches to the midfoot. So that's a big spot. Another big spot is really all along the sartorius. I have a whole episode about the sartorius that I'll have Joe link in the show notes because I talk about like a lot of facts about the sartorius. But the most common area probably that I get directed to in the sartorius area is like around the level of the adductor hiatus. And just a little bit above that on the superior border of the sartorius, there's a thing called the subsartorial plexus. It's a plexus of nerves that are branches of the femoral nerve that can get entrapped there. The saphenous nerve can get entrapped around that area as well. But it is just really there. So that area, then down at its insertion at Gertie's tubercle. So from a pes anserine attachment standpoint, that's really another powerful spot to work on it. And then up at the proximal attachment at the ASIS. And again, my favorite treatment in this area tends to be cupping, but also I've been loving stretching it. I like to stretch the sartorius in prone, and I'll free up hip adduction first, and this really helps to affect that distal end of it, along with the attachment of the adductors at that pes anserine. I'll free that up first, so it really gets the medial distal end of the sartorius, and then I'll bring the leg back into a more neutral position, go full knee flexion. You already feel after you do that hip abduction and open up that medial portion of it, knee flexion will be easier. And then once you have more knee flexion, then you'll go into internal rotation. And I really actually assist the thigh into that medial rotation. And a lot of my athletes really do feel this up at the proximal attachment when I do that, and especially when I keep the full knee flexion. And this is just a really great stretch for sartorius and seems to help quite a bit. Sometimes even more than the cupping does, if I'm being honest. And then I've been playing around too with giving them a rotator disc to put under their knee in a half kneeling position and have them do closed chain, pseudo closed chain because it's the knee, not the foot, but closed chain internal rotation with like a hip flexor stretch. And that's really good to mobilize the sartorius in full hip extension and internal rotation as well. So this one is huge. Sartorius, I'm like one of the most underrated for sure. Another common area, we'll keep it in the leg since we're here, is kind of the posterior hip where the superior gluteal nerve runs from the sacrum over to the side of the hip. So the superior gluteal nerve, it's kind of like a nerve that runs kind of almost horizontal to the ground. So perpendicular to our leg. And it goes from the sacrum over and it innervates the glute medius, glute minimus, and the TFL. So our lateral hip stabilizers, and our TFL. And so many people have TFLs that are like quote unquote tight or hypertonic, and treating the superior gluteal nerve can be huge to improve the tone of the TFL, and that is just very powerful throughout the whole leg for hip flexion, hip flexion, hip extension, hip abduction. Like, it's very powerful. I love to use the cup in this area. I have a YouTube video, I believe, that I'll have Joe link in the show notes, talking about this area too. You can do a skin stretch, you can do the dynamic cupping, you can do self-massage or like any sort of massage. I wouldn't massage right on the nerve though. I kind of would go to the around it. And you'll know you're right on the nerve, especially if the nerve is tight, because it sort of creates a divot in the skin. Like, it really like pulls the superficial fascia maybe, and the skin sort of pulls it in when it's under tension. And so it's a really great it's a really great way to know if that needs to be targeted or not. And then sorry, I was double checking that I got the muscles right. Yeah, I was correct. Anyways, so cupping inside line, typically I'll do. Self-massage. You can also do a like nerve glide version of it. A nerve glide version would be when you're lying on your side. And I have this, might be in my Vimeo. I don't know if I actually have this on YouTube, but I'll find it and I'll have Joe link it in the show notes. But it's side lying, and you're kind of like in a, you can go into flexion, right? Because we're doing a nerve glide. So we want the head and the trunk and a little bit of flexion to lengthen the central nervous system, part of the nervous system. And then remember that nerve runs horizontal. And so you're going to take the leg and you're going to dip the knee down to like touch the floor. This is going to bring the leg in hip adduction and internal rotation, which is maximizing the length of that nerve. And then you can floss it by going tip the knee down and then lift the knee up. And it's interesting because years ago I saw this as an exercise somebody posted for people with SI joint pain. They're like, do this exercise for SI joint pain. And I was like, oh, this is actually really smart because this is it's basically a super nerve glide. I don't think they emphasize it as the nerve glide, but me knowing about it, I was like, it makes sense. And then if we take a step back and we're like, well, why would that affect the SI joint? Superior gluteal nerve is one of the 5 nerves that innervates the SI joint. And so it can influence sensation of the SI joint quite a bit and often mobilize an SI joint that's not moving. So that's a real common spot. And then the last 2 real common spots are different areas of the body. The liver or diaphragm area. So like between T7 and T12 really. So thoracolumbar junction area. If we're going to call it liver, we're going to bias the right side, though the liver does cross over to the left side. But that whole area is very high payoff for a lot of things. It can affect quite a bit in the thoracic cavity, the abdominal cavity. There's quite a bit of like nerve referrals that are going to affect the upper extremity, going to affect the lower extremity, like sciatica feeling. I have a whole podcast episode. I'll have Joe link in the show notes. That's called like right shoulder and left sciatica. Is basically all about the liver. And so that's a really common spot that I end up treating on everybody, regardless of where the issues are. And the final spot is the cranium. And the cranium, this is probably like an area that most clinicians are fairly not familiar with. The cranium tends to be kind of owned by craniosacral therapists, and that's great for them, but not great for our patients, because central nervous system tension drives a lot of problems in the body. And like, why are we not good at understanding the central nervous system and understanding the cranium as more traditional practitioners? And so I'm not trained in craniosacral, but I'm trained through the Barral Institute in neural manipulation, which is very similar, but gives me some skills to be able to assess and treat the cranium, the central nervous system, and the meninges, like all the pieces. But it doesn't even have to be that complicated. I have multiple episodes that I'll have Joe link in the show notes. One like about the central nervous system, the difference between central nervous system tension and the autonomic nervous system. I have an episode about the trigeminal nerve. The trigeminal nerve is a sensory nerve, but one of the things that it innervates from a sensory standpoint is the meninges. And the meninges is the area in the cranium, the dura, that's like the suspensory ligaments to the brain. It is like the protector of the brain. And so we can actually influence the cranium mechanically quite a bit through understanding how we can facilitate trigeminal nerve inputs. And so we do this often intuitively on our own when we have some central nervous system tension. Most commonly when we starting to get a headache, we like kind of like massage our skull. We pull our hair. If we have hair to pull, we massage our scalp. We might rub our ears. We might like rub our face, cover our eyes. We tend to do a lot of things reflexively, intuitively, that is changing the intracranial pressure via the meninges, via the trigeminal nerve. So when you start to understand the anatomy, it starts to open up your treatment tools quite a bit for the cranium, and understanding how easy it is to change central nervous system tension, and therefore really tension throughout the whole nervous system, right? Because the peripheral nerves are coming off of the central nervous system. And so even often when you have symptoms via the peripheral nerves in the arms, in the torso, in the legs, in the feet, whatever it may be, it's often coming more from the cranium. And so I believe I have a whole episode on central nervous system tension patterns in the first place, and then like a lot of treatment episodes for it too. So definitely check those out. But that's it. Those are like the 5 most common things that are coming up on everybody, regardless of what's going on. And I just think even if we don't have the LTAP to tell us the sequence of treatment, like focusing on these areas, not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. And, like shameless plug too, like I have a whole low cost self-paced course called Go-To Treatments for the Viscera and the Nervous System. And it includes these areas. It includes a lot of easy movement-based interventions that are high payoff that I use over and over again in looking at it from a lens of view of treating the viscera and the nervous system. So even these areas of the leg that I talked to you about, I maybe said a little bit about the nerves, but like these areas, when you look at them of like what nerves are getting trapped, that's looking at things from a nervous system standpoint, from a visceral standpoint. And so, to the outside person, if they were to see me treating someone, they would not have any idea that I'm like treating a nerve versus just treating a muscle or a joint. It all looks the same. It's the lens of view of how you're interpreting it and how you're even determining where and why and when to do it. So if you haven't already gotten that course or checked it out, make sure you have. I'll have Joe link that in the show notes too. It like, I think it's like $150 off or something like that. I forget, but either way, I'm sure you'll see it if you haven't already seen it on an ad on Instagram or Facebook. But yeah, it's great. And the Navy guy who asked me the question of like, what are common treatments that you're doing on everybody? Like I'm like, yeah, it's actually kind of is that boring that I end up doing the same thing over and over again on multiple different people, but it's in different sequences and it always like changes different things in everybody's body. And that's actually kind of like what makes it so fun. So I think sometimes we have a tendency to make things too complicated, and hopefully this kind of boils it down to some like key areas that you can give a try and see what you think. So anyways, that's it for today. Thank you for being here. Happy 2026. I hope it gets happier than it's kind of started in the world. Go Seahawks. And we'll see you next week.